Jim VandeHei. Right before the newspaper crisis in America, he gave up his respectable job as Washington Post editor and founded his own news organization, Politico. The cross-media platform for the political elite of Washington, D.C. is considered the new lighthouse of political news. However, what is the secret behind the rocket-like rise of Politico?
Politico was founded less than 3 years ago. It was started by largely by myself and John Harris. At the time, John Harris was the political editor of the Washington Post. I was a political reporter for the Washington Post. And like everyone else, we saw the changes that were taking place in the industry. And we felt that, that old media, because of some of the limitations that come with being a legacy institution, that it'd be really hard for older newspapers to change as rapidly as they would need to change to be able to meet the changing demands and needs of consumers. It's just opportunity. I mean, I would argue John and I had two of the best jobs in journalism in the United States. To be a political writer with license to write about anything in Washington, which is what my beat was fantastic. I loved the Post. So it wasn't like we didn't like the Post and like, you're disgruntled and you're leaving. We happened to love the Post, and had we stayed there, I think would have been real central to helping them try to figure things out. We just had this amazing opportunity, and I don't think life presents like too many opportunities where you can plunge in, have sort of real creative control of a product that really sort of captures your own view and your own energy and your own metabolism for a product. So we had this great opportunity that we pounced on. I saw it sort of in my own life. I liked one of the examples of Green Bay Packers, a football team. So the first thing I did every single day was I'd go to the couple of websites that fed my addiction on that, and I always wanted more and more and more. And we thought there's a real opening to do this for politics, because Washington, at the end of the day, is a company town built around politics. We thought the way to break through was, well, let's get all the all-stars, like you're putting together a professional basketball team, get the best people in the business, put them in one place, build it around a website, not around a newspaper, and just try to sort of elbow our way to the front and be able to, sort of break stories, provide smart analysis, get our people on TV, and just inject ourselves into a conversation that years ago might take 10 years to get in. We thought we could do it overnight, and we were pretty successful, I think, in doing that. Yeah, I mean, that was always the tough one for us, because John and I, we thought, okay, well, we've been doing this for a while, and we have pretty good reputations in Washington. But if it's just the two of us, people might say, whatever, Jim and John are on drugs and they've made a terrible career decision and they're nuts. And so we always thought, well, you need more than that. And so we had been in conversations before we launched it with people like Mike Allen, who we had worked at the Washington Post and was over at Time magazine and is probably one of the better known political reporters in Washington. We pretty much knew we would get him. And once we got him, well, now you have three of the better known reporters in Washington all in one place. And it gradually made it easier to recruit people in. We paid people not an exorbitant amount of money, but we paid the type of premium it would take to lure people away from big news organizations. In the beginning, that wasn't really the case, but quickly after, I mean, people are always like, oh, man, you guys saw, you saw the implosion coming of the newspaper industry. We really didn't. We saw a big opportunity coming, but shortly after we left, there truly was an implosion in the newspaper industry. All of a sudden, big companies that had been successful for so long were having to lay people off. The revenue numbers were terrible. Circulation numbers were dropping. Web revenue was not coming in as quickly as people had hoped. So suddenly there was a tremendous amount of unease in the industry. And over here, there really wasn't unease. We were new. We were building something up from the bottom. We were not afraid of the technology. We were actually embracing the technology. We have a newspaper. It's about 30,000 circulation. It's meant to go to political insiders, so members of Congress, members of the administration, and lobbyists, people who are paid to sort of influence them. It's produced 5 days a week when Congress is in session, 1 day a week when Congress is not in session. if you think about members of Congress and government officials, they tend to be older. They tend to be of the demographic that still reads newspapers. So it's really well read, and it's a big part of our success. We have a website that's, I mean, I think it's as close to 24/7 as you're going to get. I don't think, maybe between 12 and 4 there's not that much happening, but it's a website that is staffed to run at a pretty high speed, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. I mean, there's a nominal amount of money that comes in from subscriptions for the newspaper, but that's pretty much irrelevant. Almost all of our money comes from advertising, and almost all of that advertising money comes from what they call issue advocacy advertising. If you're a defense contractor, if you are the pharmaceutical industry, if you're an environmental group, you pay to be able to put an ad on here to get people who make decisions to see it. So, members of Congress, members of the administration, so you can try to influence a debate as opposed to trying to pitch a product or something like that. I think it's sort of the efficiency of our target. Basically, we cover politics. Like, we're basically written for political, obsessives. Again, and so our core audience are political professionals, lawmakers, staff, White House officials, and that's all we really focus on. We're very much an insider publication. We're unashamed of that. You're not going to come to Politico to get coverage of the Green Bay Packers or the Redskins. You're not going to come to us to get coverage of the crime scene in one of the counties outside of Washington. We just do one thing, and I think that's a very successful model, not just for us, but for others. I think people that are going to have success, and I think different models will be successful going forward, but I think one of the most successful is going to be niche publications where you can take an area and you can own it. I mean, I think the old days of, a couple of big institutions basically deciding how people see the events and hear about the events and, order what's important for events, I mean, those are just over. I'm one, I think the old days were fine. I'm not that nostalgic about it. I actually think that what we have now and what we'll have in the future is much better. You're going to have more voices, you're going to have more information, you're going to have more competition. You're going to be able to, really get a full view of different views on different issues, because every different website is going to cater to a different group of people. I think it's demanding for the consumer, because you might have to go to multiple places to be able to get a full portrait of what's actually happening. There's definitely more people who are feeding off of it. There's definitely more people who are, in some ways like stealing your content and just blogging on it. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. That doesn't mean that that's going to replace this. There's still a huge demand for information that people can trust or can feed off of. I mean, bloggers tend to be, and not, there are obviously exceptions to this, they tend to be opinionated. They tend to be popping off on different issues and expressing their views or offering their interpretation of facts, but they need facts to be able to feed off of. I mean, I think it's changed a little bit. Like, now I spend half my time probably on the business side, so I think less of my own self-image as a journalist, but I think journalists should be a lot more concerned about their self-image, because it used to be what mattered so much was, and this is so true, was where did you work? So, you're like, I'm so-and-so from the Washington Post, and the power came from the institution. The power, it still happens. I mean, if you work for the New York Times, that's still powerful. But power can really come from the individual brand. So your ability to have a strong reputation and a following, whether it's from the stuff you're putting in the paper, online, from a blog you have, or from your appearances on TV, of looking at yourself as a journalist of a brand and what is the unique value that you bring to the table. So I think that has changed. I mean, journalism's still journalism. I care mostly about, are we getting things right? And that's what always mattered. Are we actually sort of peeling back that curtain and figuring out what's really happening in Washington? That's no different than what I tried to do 10 years ago when, I might have been at Roll Call or some other publication where you never even really thought about the web or thought about sort of the changing nature of things. So I think, not to be sort of too lofty on it, I mean, I think democracy needs that. There needs to be arbiters of truth, people that you can trust, and organizations that are going to invest in serious journalism, that are going to try to hold government accountable, that people can look at on the left and right and say, well, you know, I might not like this story, or I might not like what it does to my party, but I can trust those facts. I can trust that the congressman that they're quoting actually said that. And that's never changed, and I don't think that ever will change. Good. Thank you.